Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Virginia's Views and Vibes. I'm your host, Ginny Gardner. My KFI segment co-host, Dr. Dominic Amara, is with us, and I'll do a quick drum roll for you, Dom. Let's see.
Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Oh, it works. It works.
And there's Dr. Amara. Welcome, Dr. Amara, KFI.
Non c'è male, come stai?
And come sta?
Come stai? Stai bene? Tu stai bene?
Come sta, doctor? Come sta? Wait a minute. Dottore. Dottore?
Io sto bene.
Stephanie. Okay.
A lei?
Molto bene.
Okay.
Molto bene.
Together we can get out one sentence. Go ahead.
Benvenuto. Welcome.
Grazie,
Before we start today, I have to announce, if you love Italian music, Italian food, and Italian fun, you need to join us on June 10th, Saturday, at the Waltham Common. It is in between Elm Street and Moody Street at the corner of Moody and Main. And there's our Italian American Alliance Festa. It'll be fun for kids. Lots of great food, and it's always a big hit. So join us June 10th, 10 to 4, and have fun. Have fun with us. The other thing I do want to talk about is June 8th. No, 9th. June 9th. June 9th. We have a wine tasting event at Spinelli's in East Boston. If you would like to join us, and that will be really fun too. All you can eat, all you can drink, and great music and great host. So join us for that. You can contact me at virginiagardner@aol.com. And then the third thing is, I just want to announce that Wayland has ordered, thanks to Village Bank, the Autism Awareness Sleeve. And I want to thank Acting Chief Ed Berman and College Hype for making this happen. This is the seatbelt sleeve, and look for it soon in your community. And again, if you would like more information on this, please contact me directly, virginiagardner@aol.com. So now our special guest, president of the North End Historical Society, VP of the Italian American Alliance, and member of the Conference of Presidents. And I have to do another drum roll because here we go. Let's see. Tom Della. Woohoo! Welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much, Ginny. It's an honor to be here today and have this opportunity to see you and my good friend Dom. I'm looking forward to our chat today. This is be a fun day to catch up on things.
So tell us about let's start with the North End. Tell us about the North End and what's happening in the North End, because the list is endless. You're president now, and you jumped right in and got very involved.
Yes, several years ago, I became a director of the North End Historical Society because they had just completed and introduced a documentary on the North End, an Italian American story. This is actually the documentary they created in 2016. It's a 55-minute documentary. It tells the Italian American story, which took place in the North End for the last 120 years, and is still the longest active existing Little Italy in all of the United States. The North End is an iconic neighborhood. So I got involved with my friends who helped to produce that. The two co-founders of the North End Historical Society were Jimmy Pasto, who's a North End resident, Dr. Jimmy Pasto, who's a professor at Boston University. He helped to produce that, along with Alex Goldfeld, who was the president at that time when they organized it in 2009. And thank God they created this historical society, because when you think about the history of the North End, not to have an historical society was amazingly an oversight. So I'm always very grateful for them. And so I got involved with them. And then Alex last year had to step aside from his role as president, and I stepped in, and now I'm the president of the North End Historical Society, and it's my mission and task right now is to see that we get a museum in the North End. We've been working on a proposal for 4 years with the city of Boston, Boston Development and Planning Agency. We have a location in the Lovejoy Loft Space, which is a community cultural space that's about 2,000 square feet that was designed for the purpose of having something like a museum by the North End Historical Society. So this is this is the 4th year that I've been working on it. We've had several different proposals, and now we're finally coming to final stages where we're going to have a Zoom call on June 1st, and I'm one of 4 applicants that are going to be making a presentation as to why we should have that space and we're deserving of a museum. I mean, the North End is the only surviving neighborhood from colonial Boston, and it has no place to showcase its history and its culture. The North End has been centuries of changes, politics, religion, immigration, education. It's been the stepping stone where immigrants from the Irish, the Eastern Jewish population, Italians have all come into Boston through the North End and started their quest for an American dream that they found here. And don't forget, it's the cradle of liberty. The Freedom Trail walks through there. It's amazing.
Where can we get that 55-minute I assume it's a CD. Where can we order that? Or
yes, you can get it on our website. It's called northendboston.org. And that's our website. And on that website, you'll find you can click on documentary and you can stream it. You can purchase it for $19.99 and own it. And you can have it on your internet collection. And it's a wonderful documentary that tells the story of the last 100 years of the Italian-American neighborhood.
Wow.
And
what's interesting, Tom, what's interesting, what came to mind is that as an old West Ender, that one way that we can keep the neighborhood, Boston is very unique because of its neighborhoods. Its neighborhoods are almost like small enclaves that have represented changes in culture, has gone through its history. And the West End has a historical society. I believe the Chinatown has one. That it really behooves Boston to have the historical sites like a museum in each of the neighborhoods. And I commend you for doing that, because up until now it's been absent. And like you said, the North End is so rich in history. It really deserves one. It would be a shame not to have one.
I agree, Dom, and you made some points. Like, I know that the West End has a museum, which is a wonderful museum. In fact, a lot of the things they do there, we would also use the same type of technologies and how to make exhibits and how to show videos, presentations, lectures, and they've been there now for almost I think 20 years. And the Chinatown has a cultural center, and don't forget, even the African American Museum is in Beacon Hill, and they have a museum that you can go to. So this is crazy that the North End still does not have a museum or space. And 3 million visitors walk through the North End every year. 3 million. So you can imagine they need a place to see the story of the 400 years. And 500,000 attend the North Church Museum. And we're a good partnership with the Old North Church. We promote their programs. And then Paul Revere's house, 250,000 people visit that every year. And we are associated with them and we collaborate with them. And so we're kind of like the North End Historical Society takes that 400 years and we put our arms around it, all these particular wonderful stories and sites. You have Copp's Hill. I mean, you had Sam Adams, John Adams, Paul Revere, George Washington, Ben Franklin. All these people were part of the cradle of liberty that started the United States right here in the North End. And this is where the first neighborhood for Boston even began. So I'm very committed to see this become a reality. And like Dom says, it's almost crazy not to have something like this. And you know what? You can't take it for granted that something like this will be preserved unless you do something like create a museum to
Well, I
keep
can't,
telling the story. Because this, Dom,
I
look at
can't-
this. This is what happened to your West End.
I know, I cry
They
over
got
it.
annihilated.
I
They
know
was
it.
gone.
I
And
cry
all,
over it.
all they have today is the West End Museum. So we want to protect what's left of the North End and keep it and preserve it in its
But
legacy.
as you know, one of the things that we both, and I guess, and I know that, I know Virginia feels, and is that heritage is important to everyone. Even whether you belong to an organization or not, your heritage belongs to everyone. And we're gonna lose that perspective unless we find a system to maintain it, whether through organizations or otherwise. And neighborhood museums do a very good job of that. They're apolitical. They're run primarily by volunteers. They have people that are committed to it, but in terms of dollars, and it has a tremendous. I mean, if city fathers don't see the benefit of this, I just came back from Vegas, and it was a short trip, and it was worth it. But one of the things they had was a museum. It was called the Mob Museum, but it was a great attraction. It adds to the value of your community, and I mean, if Boston wants to maintain its tourist attraction status, it just makes no sense for them not to accept the idea of supporting a kind of museums, not only just in the North End, but all of its neighborhoods. And you've gone through 3 years of working this thing up. It makes no sense not to have it.
I agree. Well said.
You know, I'm a little bit younger than both of you, but one of my first memories of the North End was going into Haymarket on Saturdays with my grandfather, and that was an absolutely massive place where you can get. He bought everything: fruit, meat, flowers, everything, and that's even to some that has downsized. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, it has been downsized, but it still exists on Blackstone Street, but doesn't have the old push carts and that flavor that you remember, which was more characteristic of the Haymarket shopping experience. It has been diminished over the years, but it still goes on every Saturday. You can go down. They shut off Haymarket's Hanover Street. You can't go all the way through. So they
It's
can
a great tour, and it's a great tourist attraction.
Yeah.
It brings money into the city, and I keep reiterating that. Hopefully, that someone hears this. That there are parts of the city that people want to go to, and North End is certainly one of them, and that's one of the attractions.
Yeah.
You know, Dom, every time I bring anybody from Europe and my Italian friends, people in my business that were from other parts of the world, and I bring them to the North End, my neighborhood, they don't want to leave. They can't wait to go back there and have lunch or have a coffee or a cafe or whatever. It makes them feel like they're part of Europe. Besides, there's a characteristic and a vitality that's alive in the North End that makes people want to be there, that even live here. Forget the tourists, though. I mean, people just enjoy the nightlife. It's a very vibrant thing. Don't forget, we also have the feasts all summer. We have 5 feasts that go on. The religious things, they're all over 100 years old, and they bring another characteristic of the North End alive that we have a wonderful relationship with them too, and they all do a great job of establishing and keeping their heritage, Dom, which is very important. St. Leonard's Church, 1873.
And what comes down to is I don't think people understand as well, because we kind of overlook the things that are close to us. But each of these things feeds on each other. Just had one, but the more of these that you can have that feed on each other, you'll maintain that attraction. But if you start diminishing that, or erasing it, it'll disappear.
Well, you keep taking things away, Dom, and then all of a sudden you don't have this composite of wonderful collections of things that we could talk about. So 400 years of wonderful history. Like I said, there's not another neighborhood like this in the country. Never mind just Boston.
Does the Freedom Trail start there?
No, but it goes through.
There.
Yes. It might start at King's Chapel or somewhere down on Washington Street, but it goes right through the North End, and you just follow the bricks instead of the yellow brick road.
yeah.
They follow the
That's
bricks, and this was done, I think they started in the 1950s with whoever they came up with the idea, and it's been one of the smartest things that other people have followed in other cities, and they create their own trails. We also have probably more tours that go through the North End than anywhere else in Boston. I could think of at least 8 different tour or 10 tours that go on, and we're connected to a lot of them. And can you see the museum, Dom? They go through the North End, the tour, they're telling a story, and they can't tell everything, but then they could end at the museum on the waterfront in the North End, and have that be an ending point, and then they can walk around and see some of the things that they heard about in color and part of the exhibits that we have in the show.
And you bring up a good point. As a resource to the educational organizations in Boston and even outside of Boston, what an attraction that would be to say that here's one of your premier neighborhoods in the nation. If you want to know something about this, we're talking about young children.
Yeah.
Where else can we go to get this kind of a live visualization? And actually you can touch it, smell it, feel it. It isn't like going to a library where you get a book, etc., which is all great, or seeing it on TV. By going to a museum in the North End, it is sort of like a jewel with a great frame around it.
Exactly, Tom.
And I think it's something that if it needs the support of the people around it, both the city people and educators and just people even from outside the city.
Exactly.
How involved is St. Leonard's, or how attached to St. Leonard's to the obviously the North End Historical? Talk a little bit about that and the
Well,
influence.
it's interesting you mentioned that, Ginny. It was established in 1873. They're just celebrating the 150th anniversary. And I've been part of that. Part of one of our board of directors has been on the committee for celebrating the 150th gala. I just attended it at what do you call the museum on the waterfront there? The aquarium. We had 300 people showed up at $150 a person to support it. It ended up being a wonderful event. We've had presentations at St. Leonard's. They now have a new hall called St. Joseph's Hall down below, where we've actually had several events that involved the St. Leonard's Parish and Father Michael, and at the same time told the North End story, where I made some presentations on some of the things I've been sharing with you about Anthony Riccio's work, showing slides. So we have this kind of partnership, and right now the North End Historical Society is just began to become involved with a project, a sculpture to tell the Italian-American story, immigrant story that came into the North End, and we're creating a sculpture on the grounds at St. Leonard's with Father Michael's assistant involvement. We have Nancy Schoen, who's a worldwide sculptor. She's the one that designed the Make Way for the Ducklings on Public Garden. She's now working with us, and we've got a sculpture to design, and we're going to have it in the entranceway as you walk into St. Leonard's. The North End Historical Society is overseeing that project with other people that are involved with it. They wanted us to be part of it, and so now I find myself making sure we make that happen too. So yeah, we're really involved with St. Leonard's. And St. Leonard's is the religious heart of the North End. It's part of the community that's bringing people together. And Dom, I think you were there. I was at the Cardinal, what's the Cardinal's name? Cardinal
O'Malley?
Yes. He basically several months ago installed Father Michael Del Pena, a former North End kid, as the permanent priest of St. Leonard's. And it was a wonderful case. The church was packed. There was over 1,500 people in that church.
Wow.
It was just wonderful. And again, I could feel the importance of the neighborhood having something now connected to the church like it always was for the last 100 years.
And we had in January, there's another thing we should mention, the sort of anniversary mass for Father Vincent Capodanno. for a stamp and for all his work. He died in action in Vietnam. So we've had our events there. And of course, we can't talk about the North End without mentioning the Post-Gazette and Pam Donnarumma and her family. And we all know her personally. So who wants to jump in? Dom or Tom?
She is, of course, she has the premier Italian vehicle here in the New England area, I think. There are other sources, but she is as close to the Italian community as you can find, and she maintains this. She maintains the Post-Gazette out of a love for Italian culture and out of a love for the North End. I'm sure she's very supportive of the museum. Am I right, Tom?
Well, John, she was responsible for helping Alice Goldfeld and Jimmy Pasto establish the North End Historical Society. In fact, I think it was her idea to convince them that they should do something like this. And Alex Goldfeld, he wasn't even grow up in the North End. In fact, he's Jewish, but he's a great historian, wrote some wonderful historical books, was a curator at the African American Museum before he moved in, when he was living in the North End. He's got great background. He did a wonderful job getting this off the ground with Jimmy Pasto. And Pam had a lot to do with that. And she's got 3 generations of running that newspaper, going back to before 1900, which her great-grandfather had started. So it's a great history, and Pam's been nothing but a wonderful supporter of all our organizations. The Italian American Alliance, she's a friend of ours.
She does very much.
Pirandello Lyceum, you saw all the beautiful stories that she covers on our events. Can't say enough about Pam. She's such an important person in.
Well, she's a backbone to the North End, to be absolutely positive. Even as the North End changes, she's been a backbone even to no matter who moves in. She's been supportive of the people that are moving in. She's quite a lady, and she's been extremely supportive of the Italian American groups.
Right.
So she's a pretty ubiquitous and individual.
Right. And for I think it's a mere $35 a year, you can get the Post-Gazette delivered to your house once a week, and it is a paper record, I think. But so the Post-Gazette out of Boston. So the other thing is, isn't there a bookstore that basically features mostly, if not primarily, Italian authors? Do you know where that is?
Yes, it's on Salem Street. It's called I Am Books, Italian American Books. That's what the I Am stands for. And Nicola started this about 10 years ago. He had another location in the North Square area. Then he shut it down when the pandemic happened. Then it just opened it up about a year and a half ago. In fact, we had some of our presentations of Anthony Rizzo's works when his last book was introduced. We did it at his bookstore. And yes, he does have the only Italian bookstore that actually has Italian literature, Italian written literature that comes from Italy, that's in Italian, that he features in his bookstore. Of course, you can get American typical books there too, but it's really a great collection of things that you can find if you really have that love for Italianism. Anything Italian you can find there in his bookstore. And he has weekly events that he puts on. So you should subscribe to that bookstore because he does things for music, literature, and lectures on educational things. It's a wonderful, wonderful spot right on Salem.
Tom, I know you and I have talked about this a while, but I think for the viewers here, can you explain how, from in perspective of your vision, of how you would use the North End, how you'd use the historical group? What would the building be like in your view, and what would be some of the programs you would have, and how would it be as
it would look something like this? See, you have exhibits that you have on the walls, photographs telling the story. It'd be an open space, and that'd be open so that you could put chairs in there and create presentations and lectures, which we expect to do. We have also audio-visual big screens that can actually play things from the documentary or feature things that would be important to them. We would have static exhibits like the Italian American story that we tell very strongly in there. We'd have exhibits that would come and go based upon whatever the topic might be. You also have things that you would have that would deal with today's particular technology. You just go up to these things and you might see a picture, an exhibit, and you see the QR thing that you just put your phone up to, and you can hear the actual interviews that Anthony Riccio did with some of the Italian Americans from 1980 that tell their own personal story. He interviewed people that were alive during the molasses explosion. They were
Oh,
like
wow.
16 years old, 10 years old. They remember they lost some people that died, but they can tell you about the Spanish flu, living through that whole thing. So he has them with their own accent, their own words. They'll be able to hear these types of things because of today's technology. And we can keep bringing those things in and out. We have, of course, we're creating a library to archive a lot of this material so that we can continue to share this information with presentations. Lectures and conferences, we'd have movable seatings for school groups. And we have had people like Anthony Samaco as a guest speaker. He knows everything about Boston, not just the Italian neighborhoods, but every neighborhood. And he'll be some of our presenters that we would invite and do special presentations. Steve Puleo, written many books on Boston history, especially in the Italian neighborhoods. We have even our own former president, Alice Goldfeld. He's got his own books that he's written on the history of the North End in Boston. This is his book, The Brief History. He's done wonderful lectures. So we would use people of this talent to come in and make wonderful presentations so they see the exhibits and they hear about it, and then they can walk around and experience it, like the museums that we've all visited. This is what the West End Museum does, and we would bring the same thing to there at the same time that I think would really help to tell the story. And we obviously we got other partnerships we have with the Save the Harbor group, which is responsible for Boston Harbor, and we would have a facet of our museum to deal with the history of Boston Harbor as you even come into the museum and enter, because we're right on the waterfront there. Shuttles stop there. It's a drop-off spot. Anyways, those are ideas, Dom, that we've already figured we would create.
I have an idea for you, Tom.
Well, I'll take it.
Only because I love food this much. I mean, I'm always in the kitchen, but I might suggest having a small area, the ability in that room to bring somebody in, some of the old timers, to show how they prepare their famous Italian recipes.
That's easy, Dom. You know how many people we have cookbooks right now in the North End? One of the famous North End cookbook is done by what's her name? In fact, it's called the North End Recipe Book. It's #1 seller, and she'd be somebody that we'd bring in to do things like that, Dom.
That would be I would attend every night.
Yeah.
Tom, can you just again give the website and an email that people can reach out or reach the North End Historical. The website is
northendboston.org.
Okay.
Is the website, and that's where you can join. Anybody can become a member for just $30 for an annual membership, and that's how you support us. Besides, by and then I send you a weekly constant contact newsletter giving you what's happening, what the events are. Plus, you get a lot of tidbits on history of Boston and the North End that we share just to whet your appetite. But it's a very wonderful way to be part of it. And then there's the website is northendboston.org, and the email is northendhistoricalsociety@gmail.com. So just our name, North End Historical Society @gmail.com. And I'll get anybody's email from this. We'd like to write to.
I have another. You're in the process now of applying for this particular museum, correct?
Correct.
Do you? I assume that you would welcome letters of support from individuals and organizations. How do we get those to you?
Well, first of all, there's going to be a Zoom call on June 1st. people can actually, as the public, can get on the Zoom call. And there's going to be a question and answer period after I present, like I've just presented to you, some of our plans of what this museum would look like and feel like. Then they can ask questions like you are asking right now. And there's going to be, so I got about a half hour. Then it's going on to the next applicant. They'll present what they're all about. So if you want to support and be on that call, you could do like you've done, Dom. You've given some real good reasons why you think this is a great idea and why you'd be in favor of it. And then I assume that the Boston Planning and Development Agency is the one that's overseeing this. The BT, is that how you BTPA? Is that? I always get the word confused with Boston Planning and Development. It used to be the BRA.
Yeah.
So they have a website and they probably can be written to by anybody that wants to support this. So somehow I think I'll get that out there as a message too, that
I think that would be important. So I
hesitate
think
to do that.
So I think some organizations as well as individuals would support if they knew how and what, I'm sure they know why at this point. But once they're educated, they feel, how can I help with this? And one of the ways they could say is, I support this thing for these reasons.
Well, both Dom and I are members of the North End Historical Society, and I'm going to repeat it again, northendboston.org and North End Historical Society at Gmail. So time has run out. So please join us again, Tommy. This was very interesting, and thank you so much. And again,
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to have me share this, because when we first talked, this was not this all happened after we first even thought about it.
On again and update us on all the goings on and how you made out. And thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon.
My
And
pleasure.
join me for another segment of K5 with my co-host, Dr. Dominic Amara. Thank you.
Arrivederci, arrivederci, arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Okay, that's it. We are done. That was great. You guys were great.
Are we done?
We are done. We are done.
I still see Waycam here that he could be still.
I know
doing
they
it.
will. They'll I'm gonna have to yell to Mark and say, hey Mark, we are done. I think, let me see if I can say leave here somewhere. But I think,
Yeah, if you click leave, then you'll disappear.
you know
Yeah.
what else you can do? I could go through my book and see if you could say these words. No. So I'm gonna, all right, leave. All right, do you see leave at the top of your screen?
I see it on the bottom.
Okay, leave. All right, then thank you, and
right.
we'll talk soon.
Hey, Dawn, I want to talk to you right after this. I got something I got to ask you.
Call each other.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Hey,
Thank you.
Ginny,
He
you-
wants the winnings I had from Las Vegas.
I bet.
Okay.
All right, see you later.